So let me get started here. Hopefully have a little time for questions and answers at the end. But if you have one during it, we'll go ahead and answer it then. I want to do a little review, and the previous speakers touched upon it about the responders. It's a help if you're not in emergency services or if you're not regularly going to the LEPC meetings, which I strongly suggest are open meetings. They don't cost a nickel. They usually have really good coffee, and sometimes they bring donuts and stuff like that, okay? But get there and know those folks, because it'd be unfortunate if you or say a facility that had to file Tier 2 reports, and the first time you've seen these people that are there to help is there at 2 o'clock in the morning when something's going on in your business and you might have injuries to your staff and that kind of thing. All right, get there. You don't have any real responsibility initially except just to listen, and then once you start coming, we're going to give you a little bit of work to do, but it's a good thing, and you're going to make some really good contacts. Because you should know those people in your neighborhood, okay, whether it's your city, your township, your county, because they're the ones that are going to be first in to help you. It's like calling the family. That's what the fire service does. We need more help. Get on the radio. They're all coming. It's a good thing. More people is more information, better resources, more safety. But when we talk about environmental emergencies, we're thinking predominantly chemicals. They can come in all shapes and sizes. And this is the fire service priorities, and I heard the previous speakers mention this. This is what we call LIPE, L-I-P-E, Life Safety, Incident Stabilization, Property Conservation, Environmental Considerations. You go to any firefighter in this state, they ought to be able to crack that off about that fast, because it's hammered into them their first day of fire school. Their safety, everybody else's safety, the public, whoever we're going to, we're going to make the bad things stop. We're going to save what we can, whether it's blowing out a bedroom window, jumping in and grabbing the home computer and a hard drive, or if it's putting the company's computers and stuff on a pallet jack and running them out the back door, whatever we need to do. And then environmental considerations. These get mixed up. It's easy to remember this way, but we're doing all these things at the same time. It's very, very busy. You know, we're not going to disregard the environment if we have enough time and enough personnel to make a difference and protect it. Whether it's a structure fire that was intentionally set in a basement, whether it's a motor vehicle accident out here on Division Street, which is basically 3 highways moving through our city. We go through more oil dry than anybody, I think, as a department, because pretty much every storm drain runs where? Right there to the bay. And if we don't get on it, there's a chance it could get to the bay, and we want to protect our resources. So we go through a lot of oil dry. We go through probably a skid every few months. Or if it's a person that was slightly confused, older, which that's me some days, although I've not done this, and they put their car into reverse instead of driving. They back over the parking meter through the guardrail, kill the parking meter, send it to the bottom of the Boardman River, and they end up floating down the river. So we get called all kinds of things. But you know, we didn't have any leaks on that one. That was good. We were able to get in. Actually, it was part of our city concrete crew was in the park that's just to the left of that photo, doing some curb and gutter, and they actually jumped in and got the guy out of the car. It was awesome. You know, the guys in the yellow trucks always get picked on because they, you know, are 3 wide in the truck and who's doing what work. They were there actually quicker than we were because they were right there seeing it happen. Awesome. Or it's trying to refloat boats that, you know, probably missed the class on proper anchorage during storms. If there's anybody out there that has any questions, bring your boat up here, anchor it off of West End Beach out here in West Bay, and wait for about a 20-mile-an-hour north wind to blow in, and you'll be testing your anchoring skills. A lot of people that moor their boats out there are not on them. They could be up in Gaylord, we don't know. And their anchor lines come loose, and the waves beat them to death and break their outdrives, and then they sink, and they're right there. So we're on that. Or it might be this. Life safety. This is in back of our fire station about 6 years ago. Just to the left is where my guys were barbecuing chicken on the grill. Went out there to turn the chicken. Oh, hello. Yep, that was about 9 o'clock in the evening. I don't know what this officer's doing. I don't know. Do they cover this in law enforcement school? Yeah, stand off with a bear. The fire guys were way over here. But we were able to call in our partners from the DNR, tranquilize them, and get him out of the neighborhood. No injuries. He was a very upset black bear. And this is over about 3 blocks from my house. So any kind of incidences, we're ready for them. Or this, and this is a case study I'm going to talk about later on in my program. This was a location here in town that had a leak, a fire, and then a big environmental concern, and I'll walk us through that here in a little bit. They're different. Chemicals, hazardous materials, these things are different for the fire service. We have a lot of experience with structure fires. We have a lot of experience with medical calls. We have a lot of experience with motor vehicle accidents and such. You know, hazardous materials calls, chemical calls are high risk, low frequency. And I heard that too, man. That's cool. You and I've been going to the same school. That's awesome. We don't do it a lot, but it's very, very dangerous. Okay, and basically, and you got to have your radar turned up on 10 because things can happen quick. Whatever is involved is going to predicate how we handle it, how we protect our people, what actions we take to make the bad things stop, also protect our environment, and then what we have to do to get ready and maybe decontaminate some people that have been exposed. This is a definition you'll find in a lot of books and a lot of text in the fire service for a hazardous material. Any substance that stores potentially harmful energy when not contained in its intended container. Pretty cool. Gasoline hauler, we see them every day, right? As long as they got the rubber side down, we're good to go. When they tip over, we got a problem. Could have a fire, right? Could have been a motor vehicle accident. Maybe this guy swerved. Could be some injuries, some fatalities. Product leaking everywhere. Where's the nearest storm drain? We got to put some foam on it? Do we need more people? Do we have the road blocked off? Are the utilities affected? Can we shut the utilities down? All these things are going through that incident commander's head when we get called to something like this. And this is not just for like one engine company. We're going to call a lot of people for this, and a lot of people that aren't in the fire service. Utilities, water, sewer, street department, for barricades, those types of things. It gets big pretty quick. Now when we think about spills, this is probably the DEFCON 5 of all spills so far in Michigan. This is Marshall. Anybody recognize it? Marshall, Michigan, when they had the pipeline breach. Yeah, read that case study. It'll take you a couple of nights. But there's a lot of things to be learned from this. If you get a chance to get on the internet and do some reading of some good sites, you can learn a lot from that, how everybody finally got after it and mitigated it. Or it could be this. It could be something pretty small scale, not a hazardous material. Anybody recognize what this dumpster is for? Yeah, grease, right? Waste oil, French fry oil, stuff. Yeah, it's behind a restaurant right here in town. About 150 foot from the Boardman River. Awesome. What happened was there was a contractor from downstate, private contractor, that has a truck that grabs onto this thing much like a garbage dumpster and tips it into the truck, and it's a tank truck, and then it goes away. Well, I apologize, the lights are a little bright in here, but the shiny stuff on the ground is a lot of cooking oil and grease. And we get the call at the fire station, okay, hey, there's people driving through this stuff in the parking lot, and it's going out into the street. This happened 40 minutes before we got the call. Between 30 and 40. We get there, we throw down a bunch of oil dry like crazy. We're bringing more bags out of the station. There's the tracks. People are leaving, driving through it from the restaurant, don't really know what it is. If I walked out of a restaurant, and if you're with a firefighter, you see sticky stuff on the pavement, you're going, oh, we're not going there. We're going that way. A lot of people didn't think about it. We were oil dry sprinklers for about 20 minutes. to make sure that we kept this stuff from spreading. We protected, there's some that did get into the storm drain. We have, there in the middle, there's a inflatable plug that myself and a couple of the other hazmat teams in Region 7 are actually blessed with a grant through Region 7 Homeland Security to get, and they're in various sizes, and they are for plugging storm drains, protecting the river, plugging the outflow. Put it in there, inflate it, bloop, big plug, perfect. It worked out real good. Called in a contractor, actually the owner called in, the restaurant called in the contractor and vacked it out. Let me back up. We just got that all cleaned up. The street department was there, sweeping everything up off the pavement. We vacked out the storm drain. We think a little bit of it may have gotten away from us. We're not sure. We called the NRC. We did everything we're supposed to do. Whew. Okay, we're done. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning and we got a ½ inch of rain. And that storm drain right there where that outflows, that takes up like 1 whole quarter of the city. So you imagine the water is blowing out of that pipe like out in the river like it always does when it rains hard. So we got lucky. We know where these happen, and this is, I wanted to bring it home for the property owners and facility operators. If you look at the stats, in transit, 3,000 plus. Storage, not so much. Loading and unloading, right? Look at the damages. Look at the injuries. Look at the, there's no fatals, but look at the injuries and look at the incidents. Loading and unloading. So it's either being put on something to go away from the facility, or it's coming in on something to be used there. And that's where these things are happening. This is from 2015 in our nation, and these are the ones that were reported, the majors. I can't emphasize enough, and I heard that I was fortunate enough to be in here a little early this morning and hear previous speakers. Know your responders. Okay, not all fire departments are the same. Not all law enforcement departments are the same. They all have challenges with staffing, with equipment, with training, all of those types of things. Get to know them. If you go to the LEPC meeting, you're going to meet them. Hey, let's get a cup of coffee sometime. I want to hear, what you guys can do. Well, your fire department. I got an uncle on a fire department. What's your fire department like? Get to know those people. Okay. Whether or not you're, on like the state side or the federal side or the local side, get to know these people. I want to talk about levels of hazardous materials responder training. There's 4 levels that are recognized in our state. It's very, very important because if the property owner, pulls the trigger, I got something leaking out the back doors, making purple gas, whatever, the fire department gets there and they go, yep, we're staying right here. You're thinking, no, man, go get it, make it stop. We're not trained to that level. We don't have the equipment. Okay, well then who do you call? Well, they know who to call. Okay, in our area in Region 7, we've got 3 hazardous material response teams that'll slide around. I've got one here in Traverse City. In fact, Grand Traverse Metro, which is the 3 townships around the city, just joined. Otsego County EMS and Rescue. Talk to them 2 nice-looking young guys back there. And one of the neighbors from way down in Muskegon County. Yeah, you can't hide. I know where you are. Also a resource. Okay, but it's for their own safety. They can't go in if they're not trained, and especially if they don't have the equipment. So awareness level, and the next level operations have been combined. But this used to be 4 hours. Okay, 4-hour class, take a test. You're good. You can recognize, oh, this is something bad, who to call, how to protect the scene. That's it. That's awareness. This is huge. If everybody in the state was trained to this. Because I tell you what, the people that came out of the tavern and walked through the waste oil and cooking stuff and tracked it in their car and then drove around and called us the next day on how to get it off their car, not a clue. Operations level. Every firefighter in the state of Michigan is supposed to be trained to this level. It's a 24-hour class. It's a lot of, some book work, but a lot of hands-on exercises, performance evaluations and testing. It's supposed to be. It may not be. But they take defensive actions. They can set up hose lines. They can put foam on a overturned gasoline hauler. Those types of things. They just can't go in and touch it. It's OSHA law. If they do, they can get jammed up. Number one, they can get hurt if they don't know what they're doing. Number two, they can hurt somebody else. Number three, here comes OSHA. Technician levels. They can put on the very expensive level A suits and go in there and make a difference. Okay? My team here in town, we have technicians. Grand Traverse Metro has technicians. Chris's team down in Muskegon County and John's team up in Gaylord all have technicians. These are the people that are going to go into the plant, turn the valves, shut things off, those types of things. They can make the difference. And again, understanding what resources you have locally to support your incident is very, very important. You know, the tools in the toolbox type of thing. Specialists are, there's not many, because that's even a higher level, and there's a lot more studying and a lot more commitment. They are specialists in maybe rail cars and semi-tanker trailers and intermodal containers. Anybody know what an intermodal container is? Intermodal. These really goofy looking big vessels you see on the back of flatbed trucks or even on trains. And they typically have some pretty nasty stuff in them. And they're shipping it in volume. If one of those things falls off the truck or gets involved in an accident, we've got an issue. But these guys are a real big help, and we rely on them. So laws, I want to talk a little bit about laws, and I'm going to talk about the LEPC. We're all familiar with SARA and HAZWOPER and the community right to know, the firefighter right to know. That gives us the horsepower to go in there and say, could you please tell me what you have in your building? Now, if it's a proprietary, like a trade secret, they don't have to tell us how much of this and how much of that. If we go to Coca-Cola and say, hey, give me the recipe, they're not going to do it. But they can say, well, I've got 10,000 gallons of this and 25,000 gallons of that. Well, that's all I want to know. This gives us the horsepower to ask that nicely, and if they don't, we're going to get our cousins in law enforcement involved and say, you need to tell us, because people have gotten hurt. It started way back in Bhopal, India, when Union Carbide had a release and killed hundreds and hundreds of people. And then Love Canal up across, up by the Niagara River in the 50s, that whole long-term groundwater contamination mess, that's where SARA came from for our country. There's reasons for these things, and they're good. And they're there to help the community and help us. So right here, we boil it down. We got the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, and under that, each county is supposed to have an LEPC, a Local Emergency Planning Committee, typically headed up by the emergency manager. Each of our 82 counties is supposed to have an emergency manager. We're blessed in our county that they actually fund that as a full-time position with benefits. Kind of unheard of in this part of the state. Typically, that's kind of like a retirement gig for previous fire service, law enforcement, some type of emergency response agency. And they may only pay them 20 hours. And so they got to do another part-time thing for the county for 20 hours to try to get it together. So when I interact with emergency managers from around the state, you know, I have a lot of patience for them and a lot of a certain amount of sympathy, because they're doing 60 hours of work and getting paid for 20. And typically they'll run the local emergency planning committee meetings. Here in our county, I heard the comment about LEPCs, the numbers kind of go up and down. Ours do too, depending on what's going on. But we usually have 20 plus, sometimes 30, depending on what's going on. And this is just part of the group that comes in and out. And if you look through there, you can pick off a lot of fire service, a lot of law enforcement, a lot of medical. We also have TCAPS, which is the schools, WTCM, which is a country radio station up here, right? We're in camouflage land up here, believe it or not. And they're also our Region 7 emergency broadcast channel. They have a backup generator, and when the chips are down, they can push out all the emergency broadcasts. Private industry is there. We have emergency management, county roads, the airport, TSA, all these other people. But primarily, those are most of the ones that show up all the time. And we talk about things. Primarily to do with chemical incidents, all we planned with other things, Cherry Festival, all these other festivals that we have up here. Back in 2015, we had a pretty big windstorm up here, ripped the area up pretty good, especially up in Leelanau County. Let me move into our, Sarah, I'm trying to watch the clock here.
5 minutes.
Fiver, okay. So, anybody aware of the Tier 2 manager? Show of hands. Just a couple. Okay, awesome. Whoever developed that and got it in our state, I'm going to give them a big hug or buy them a beer or something. Hop in my command vehicle and I can go to this website and I can find out information that is logged that used to be sent through the mail and paper. I can get rid of about 3 binders of stuff and I can have it on a computer and I can even get it on my smartphone. It's all password protected, and what it does is it gives us that very important emergency contact information for the facility, because if we're there in the middle of the night and nobody's around, if it's not a 24-hour operation, we got to call somebody. And it gives us a list of the chemicals that they're required to report on. It has mapping capabilities. It has plume modeling capabilities for gases moving about the area. All this stuff is in there, and it's great. It's like one-stop shopping to help us. But we can use that not only in the response, but also on the planning side of things. We need to plan before the alarm, before the incident, okay? You've probably been doing, if you live in Michigan, you've been planning for the winter weather at home, haven't you? Right? Yes, no? It's because it's here today, right? Yeah, no different. We want to be ready. We have a best chance of success if we're ready. We're gonna pick on our target hazards first, because those are the things that have the quantities or the types of chemicals that if they escape, they might affect the biggest population. And then we're gonna go to the others. I'm going to walk you through a real quick case study here as we're winding up. This is a facility that I had mentioned. It was back on Labor Day 2013 on Monday, the Labor Day when everybody's supposed to be off. This is Century Sun over here by the airport. I've got some more pictures coming up. They are the second largest user of electricity in the city. They heat treat metal of little tiny things and very, very large things. And they have many different types of ovens and some barium salts and different things that they use to get that job done. What had happened was in one of their big electric ovens had a leak, had a coolant leak. It was a 50-50 mix of propylene glycol and water that sprayed out under pressure, atomized, and lit. And we get the call. They had 7 people in that place at that time on Labor Day working. They all got out safely. We called a lot of people from the area. My department, all of my off-duty guys came in, 2 other area fire departments, city police and Northlight, and that was within 5 minutes. That's how big this thing was getting. We had, surprisingly, on a holiday, we had a lot of support from the administration. We had the company owner was there, came in, the chief operations manager, the chief maintenance, you know, the guy that walks around with a giant wad of keys, right? He's the guy I want because he knows that building like the back of his hand. That's the guy I want. They all came in, and 2 of the employees, one of which was a firefighter in another local department who was there on duty, we wrapped them right in here, and we're figuring out how to get a handle on this. This is a map. I'm sorry, it's not a real good picture, but let me come over here just real quick. You know, the computers and everything and the downloads and the PDF files are real nice, but it's also pretty quick to just roll a map out on the hood of a truck. This is north. Their fire was right there. Well, we didn't know until after we knocked the fire down. There was a roll down door, a steel roller door, hooked to fusible link, that if it was heated by fire, the door was supposed to come down, it came down within 2 foot of the floor and stopped. Didn't know that until we got in there. But we were able to hold the fire to here. But like I said, everybody got out safe. So I had mentioned they had 6,000 gallons of this 50-50 mix, right? Well, we used a lot of water putting this fire out. There's a picture of it right there. That was my first in officer. Took a cell phone, hung it around the door jamb, and took a picture because the overhead door was up. And that's the oven back there with the coolant. And they also had hydrogen tanks in there. One of them leaked through a fitting and was adding to the fire. That picture was taken from the air traffic control tower. That's out near the airport. And that's another photo from the traffic control tower. So think of this, if we've never been in this building, we're not familiar with the owners, we don't know what's in there, and the fire department is rolling up and they see a smoke plume that looks like they're burning 2 semi-loads of tires, and it's drifting out over the airport and heading toward a couple of subdivisions. There's a lot of things spinning through that fire chief's or that incident commander's head. Well, we know these people. We've been in their facility. We've toured it on walkthrough tours. We had the latest map they provided to us. All of these things were in our favor. And they said, it's in this area. Everybody's out. The only thing that's burning is this liquid. There's really no product in there. It's all steel, everything. So we protected the people, got them out, and we're just going to contain. Now, getting into the environment, that's the roof. You know, pole barns hold heat in like the Jiffy Pop popcorn. They'll pretty much hold the heat in and cook everything until they burn the rubber off the roof. That's after the fire's out. That's some of that coolant. Now, out here in the parking lot, if you notice, I'm going to come around here again, right? There's a low spot, right? In the parking lot. We used a few thousand gallons on this fire. One of the first new engine companies took a salvage cover, which is a really nice thick rubber tarp that we use to protect things in a house when, like, say the second floor is on fire and water's coming through the ceiling. We'll throw the salvage cover. Took a folded up salvage cover and threw it on a storm drain. And I can't remember, they put 1 or 2 bags of oil dry on it, knowing that that water is going to the storm drain. Now, when it came to the storm drain, there's a little bit of unknown information. We were under the impression that it was a closed system, and we were able to get a hold of our city water and also our city street department. They sent personnel. It's a holiday. They came in, said, that goes down there and goes down there and goes down there, and it could go all the way to Metro Creek, and then that goes into East Bay. And I'm like, oh my. So we called the NRC, got everybody involved. That's a picture taken from a manhole about 200 yards downstream. Thankfully, that the industrial park was developed back in the late 60s, early 70s, and there was a bow in the pipe way down there, and that's where it ended. We finally found a clean manhole before it got to the creek. So we were able to have a contractor come in, pull all that out, jet rod the whole storm sewer. Things worked out well. We got lucky on that one. Even though the guys took the initial action, wasn't quite enough. We already seen this. This is just a different version. You got to plan. You got to train. The fire guys, the response community will come in and train, sure, because we have to. And I tell you what, storm drains are scary. We never know what we're going to find when we get called to inspect a storm drain or something's going on. Sometimes you take a risk, and sometimes it pays off. Little baby ducks. So that's my presentation for today. If you got just a couple of questions, I know we're running up on your break, but I'm going to be back this afternoon on a couple of the discussion panels. So unless you got a couple of quick questions now, I'm good. All set?
Yeah, folks, and we'll have opportunities for questions as the day progresses. So even though speaker's not up there at the moment, we can come back to some questions later as well. But go ahead, take 15 and.
Thank you.